Hello, Midnights. You are listening to your favorite bedtime stories. Next up, The Secret of Area 122, the Vatican archives between myth and reality. We hope you enjoy our stories. Let us know where you are tuning in from. And while you're here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps keeping these stories coming. Thank you. There are places on this earth whose very name is enough to send shivers of doubt, curiosity, and fascination through the human mind. When these locations are intertwined with the oldest continuous institution in the Western world, the boundaries between documented history and modern mythology blur completely. In recent years, a specific term has circulated with striking persistence through the forums of the digital underground, social media documentaries, and conspiracy-themed podcasts, Area 122. Supposedly, this refers to a highly classified, deeply subterranean section of the Vatican Apostolic Archive, the historic repository that, until a few years ago, officially bore the Latin name Archivum Secretum. While the official archive is accessible to qualified researchers from around the world under strict conditions, Area 122 is rumored to be the absolute epicenter of classification. It is whispered to be a place where documents are guarded that could shatter not only the foundations of the Christian faith, but the entire self-understanding of human civilization. But what is the truth behind this designation? Does Area 122 actually exist? Or is it merely a clever linguistic analogy to America's Area 51? Engineered to harvest clicks and attention in the internet age. To provide a serious answer to this question, we must dive deep into the material, into the real fascinating history of the Vatican vaults, into the bizarre yet historically tangible theories regarding time machines, UFOs, and apocryphal texts, and finally into a sober plausibility check that separates the wheat from the chaff. The tangible foundation, the Vatican Apostolic Archive. Before examining the shadow lines of conspiracy theories, we must understand the physical space under discussion. The Vatican Archive is not a figment of the imagination. It is one of the most important historical source collections in human history. The origin of the bunker, the archive, was established in its current form, separated from the rest of the Vatican Library, in the year 1612 by Pope Paul V for centuries. It remained completely closed to the public and even to the scientific community. It was not until 1881 that Pope Leo XIII opened the gates to accredited historians. Today, the archival holdings extend over an unimaginable length of approximately 85 kilometers of shelving. A significant portion of these shelves is located underground in the so-called bunker. This is a two-story, atomic bomb-proof and fireproof, reinforced concrete structure situated beneath the Cortile della Pigna, the pinecone courtyard of the Vatican museums. The misunderstanding of the word secretum, the centuries-old name, Archivio Segreto Vaticano, Vatican's secret archive, served as the primary fuel for myths. In modern linguistic usage, secret implies something that is deliberately covered up or concealed. In the historical Latin of the Catholic Church, however, secretum, derived from Caesarea, meant simply private or separate. Historically, it was the private archive of the Pope, distinct from the public administrative offices. To counteract this eternal misunderstanding, Pope Franciscus officially renamed the archive to Archivio Apostolico Vaticano in October 2019. Nevertheless, access remains highly restricted. Admission is granted only to researchers with a completed university degree and a concrete, historically justified research project. Free browsing is strictly prohibited. Historians must search for exact shelf marks in advance using catalogs and request them specifically. Documents dating from after the end of the pontificate of Pope Pius XII in 1958 remain, with very few exceptions, closed to the general public. It is precisely within this vacuum, the inaccessible period after 1958, and the deep subterranean corridors of the bunker, that the myth of Area 122 finds room to breathe. Part 2. The anatomy of the Area 122 myth. Where does the designation Area 122 originate? Anyone searching intensively for academic or official archival floor plans will be disappointed. The term does not appear in any official register. Nonetheless, its genesis in the digital age can be precisely reconstructed. Origin of the term. The term is a so-called portmanteau of popular culture. It combines the famous Area 51, the United States military restricted area in Nevada, associated with alien myths, with internal, purely organizational room or section numbers of the Vatican. In the labyrinthine underground corridors of the Vatican, storage rooms, shelf aisles, and seismological measuring points are numbered. In pseudoscientific forums, a mundane aisle number, potentially section 122 of the underground bunker, was transformed into a hermetically sealed high-security wing. According to the narrative, Area 122 is a place where even the prefect of the archive may only enter when accompanied by the commander of the Swiss Guard, and with direct, written authorization from the Pope. The documents kept there are allegedly stored not on paper, but partly on parchment, metal plates, and unidentifiable materials. Part 3. Historical traumas. When the archive lost its innocence to understand why the world readily believes the Vatican is capable of guarding cosmic secrets, one must look at the real historical traumas suffered by the archive. Secrecy was not always just a spiritual end in itself. It was often a matter of raw political survival. The pillage by Napoleon Bonaparte in the year 1810. Napoleon Bonaparte resolved to govern all of Europe from a centralized Paris. For him, this included the world's accumulated knowledge. He ordered the confiscation of the entire Vatican archive. In a massive logistical undertaking, thousands of crates were loaded onto hundreds of wagons and transported across the Alps to Paris. Napoleon intended to establish a central world archive. During those years in Paris, countless documents were lost, sold, or destroyed. Following the fall of Napoleon, papal envoys brought the majority of the documents back to Rome under dramatic conditions. However, due to a severe lack of funds, tons of papers had to be sold as scrap paper in France just to finance the transport of the most critical state records back to Italy. This event burned itself deeply into the institutional memory of the Vatican. The archive learned a painful lesson. If you do not physically and absolutely protect your documents, you lose your history and your power. Since then, the doctrine of extreme isolation has prevailed. The riddle of the Codex Vaticanus, another real historical mystery that feeds the belief in an Area 122, is the history of the Codex Vaticanus. This is one of the oldest and most complete surviving manuscripts of the Bible, dating back to the 4th century. The document had been in the possession of the Vatican since the 15th century, but was kept hidden from the world public for hundreds of years. When Western scholars in the 19th century attempted to examine the text to verify the accuracy of modern Bibles, they were repeatedly denied access. Critics immediately suspected that the Codex contained massive deviations from the Christianity known today. Only sparingly, and after decades of pressure, was the text photographed and published. The historical fact that the Vatican deliberately kept one of the most important religious documents of humanity under lock and key for centuries serves as the ultimate proof for conspiracy theorists that far more volatile writings are stored in rooms like Area 122. Part 4. The most prominent conspiracy theories and their sources. What secrets are allegedly guarded in this supposed Area 122? The theories can be categorized into 4 major areas: technological anomalies, extraterrestrial life, theological volatility, and the dark reality of the occult. The chronovisor, the Vatican's time machine, one of the most widespread and fascinating stories concerns the so-called chronovisor. The theory, in the 1950s, an Italian Benedictine monk and physicist named Father Pellegrino Ernetti, along with a team of 12 top-tier scientists, including, allegedly, Nobel laureate Enrico Fermi and rocket pioneer Werner von Braun, is said to have developed a device capable of capturing electromagnetic remnants of past events. The chronovisor was not a time machine in which one could travel, but an apparatus that displayed the past visually and audibly on a screen. Ernetti claimed he had used it to hear speeches by Cicero, witness the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and even watch the crucifixion of Jesus Christ live. The conspiratorial connection to Area 122, the device was, allegedly dismantled by the Vatican, and the construction blueprints, along with the recorded evidentiary films, including the true face of Jesus, were locked away in the deepest vaults, namely this Area 122, to prevent the collapse of global power structures and the blind faith of believers. The UFO secret and the statements of David Grush in the summer of 2023, UFO research, officially designated as UAP for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, reached a new dimension when former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush testified under oath before the U.S. Congress. The theory, Grush officially asserted that the United States is in possession of spacecraft of non-human origin. Of particular relevance to this discussion was his explicit mention of the Vatican. According to Grush, a UFO crashed in Magenta in northern Italy in 1933 during the dictatorship of Benito Mussolini. The fascist regime recovered the wreck. However, Pope Pius XII is said to have covertly informed the US government under Franklin D. Roosevelt about the existence of this object through Vatican channels, after which the Americans confiscated the craft at the end of World War II. The conspiratorial connection to Area 122, UAP researchers argue that the Vatican archives are replete with accounts of flying houses, luminous spheres in the cells of nuns, and instances of levitation. In Area 122, therefore, physical evidence, correspondences from 1933, and theological treatises are alleged to be hidden, documenting how the Church conceals the existence of extraterrestrial life forms from humanity. The true fate of the Knights Templar and the Apocrypha, the classic anti-clerical conspiracy theory, states that the Bible, as it is known today, is the result of brutal censorship. The theory, Area 122, is rumored to hold the original unadulterated Gospels, including the complete Gospel of Mary Magdalene, texts depicting Jesus as a mortal, husband and father, and evidence that reincarnation was rooted in early Christianity before it was condemned at the Council of Constantinople in the year 553. Furthermore, it is claimed that the secret treasures and protocols of the Knights Templar are preserved there, proving that the order was never truly destroyed. The Devil's Files, real exorcisms and demonic possession away from science fiction. There is a realm that the Vatican handles completely officially, albeit with extreme discretion: exorcism. The existence of demonic forces remains an established part of Catholic dogma. The theory, in the deepest recesses of Area 122, a so-called black section, is alleged to exist. Here, the audio-visual recordings, protocols and physical remnants of exorcisms classified under Category Grade 5 are said to be kept. Cases where the laws of physics were seemingly suspended entirely. There are reports of audio tapes on which possessed individuals speak fluently in extinct languages like ancient Akkadian or Sumerian without ever having learned them. Likewise, objects that materialized during such sessions or were regurgitated by the afflicted, such as nails, glass shards, or ancient coins, are said to be stored there. This section is supposedly maintained to protect humanity by quite literally locking evil away. Part 5. credibility analysis, and source evaluation. As investigative analysts, we must now subject these theories to a rigorous examination. How credible are the sources? Where does historical fact end? And where does fiction begin? Evaluation of the chronovisor of facts. Father Pellegrino Ernetti was a real person, a respected expert in archaic music and a physicist. However, the story of the chronovisor was popularized primarily through a book by the French priest François Brune in the 1990s. The dismantling, significant doubts exist. An alleged photograph of Jesus on the cross, supposedly delivered by the chronovisor, turned out to be a postcard reproduction of a wooden crucifix from an Italian monastery in Colvalenza. Ernetti himself is reported to have admitted on his deathbed that the story was heavily exaggerated or intended as a parable. Credibility rating: extremely low. The physical principles required for such a device contradict the laws of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics as we know them. It is a fascinating urban legend of the post-war era. Evaluation of the UFO theory, the facts. David Grosh is a high-ranking former intelligence official whose credibility was deemed substantial by many members of Congress. He testified under oath. However, this does not automatically mean his information is true. He merely passed on information related to him by third parties, which constitutes hearsay. The reaction of the Vatican. In June 2024, the Vatican reacted unusually directly to these claims. Marco Grilli, the secretary to the prefect of the Vatican Archives, stated to the Catholic News Service that no documents regarding extraterrestrial life exist in the archive. He compared the inquiries to requests to read the personal letters of Pontius Pilate to the Virgin Mary, adding that one could only laugh at such notions. The prefect emphasized that researchers should be discouraged from such fruitless endeavors. Credibility rating: medium to low. While real accounts of anomalous phenomena in ancient texts are historically documented, often interpreted as miracles or angelic visitations, the story of a coordinated UFO cover-up between Mussolini, the Pope, and the US is historically very thinly supported and lacks any physical evidence within the released files of Pius XII. Evaluation of the secret writings and censorship, the facts. The Vatican does indeed possess numerous apocryphal texts. Yet here lies the irony. The majority of them are not secret at all. Texts such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, or the Nag Hammadi Library have long been translated, printed, and are freely accessible to anyone in bookstores or online. The reality of archiving. The long-time prefect of the archive, Archbishop Sergio Pagano, published a comprehensive interview book titled Secretum. In it, he revealed genuine historical secrets from 45 years of work, such as how the Vatican manipulated documents related to the trial of Galileo Galilei, or how the letters of Henry VIII requesting the annulment of his marriage, which led to the Anglican Schism, were hidden in secret drawers to protect them from Napoleon. Pagano demonstrates that the real secrets of the Vatican are highly political, diplomatic, and deeply human, but they do not contain magical artifacts. Credibility rating: low regarding science fiction conspiracies, but high regarding real political intrigues. Evaluation of the exorcism protocols, the facts. Records of exorcisms do genuinely exist. However, they are generally not preserved in the historical archive, but rather in the archives of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith and within the respective dioceses worldwide. The reality: these files contain detailed psychological evaluations, medical reports, and theological protocols. To outsiders, these files appear highly conspiratorial because they are never published, out of respect for the privacy of the individuals involved and due to spiritual sensitivity. The supernatural phenomena described, such as speaking in unknown tongues, are interpreted by skeptics and modern psychiatrists as rare psychological dissociations or psychotic states. Credibility rating: high regarding the physical existence of the records, medium to low regarding the paranormal interpretation. Part 6. The psychological fascination of the hidden, the myth surrounding Area 122 draws nourishment not only from historical gaps, but also feeds on deep psychological mechanisms within the human psyche. In a fully mapped world where nearly every corner of the Earth can be inspected via satellite imagery and the internet, the human mind rebels against the total loss of mystery. The Vatican serves as the perfect projection screen for this desire. It blends the sacred with the bureaucratic. The knowledge that behind meter-thick walls, guarded by a Swiss guard in Renaissance uniforms, lie documents centuries old, creates an intense narrative tension. Area 122 functions as a modern myth that satisfies the need for a deeper hidden truth. It is the comforting or thrilling idea that the world is not as mundane as it appears in everyday life, but that there are keepers of secret knowledge capable of overturning the entirety of human history. Conclusion. Why the myth survives at the end of this journey through the corridors of the Vatican and the depths of the internet, a clear conclusion emerges. Area 122 most likely does not exist as a physical, hermetically sealed vault filled with alien technology and time machines. The term is a modern digital projection that cleverly consolidates real anxieties and human fascination. Why then does this myth persist so stubbornly? The nature of the institution, the Catholic Church, has operated for 2 millennia using symbols, secrecy, and a rigid hierarchy. Where absolute transparency is absent, human imagination rushes to fill the void. Selective openness. The fact that the archive largely restricts access to documents after 1958 creates the impression among outsiders that secrets are being actively withheld. That this primarily serves to protect the personal privacy of individuals still living or to maintain diplomatic discretion is a rational, but far less exciting explanation. The longing for mystery. In a highly rationalized world, humans long for the unknown. Area 122 provides the perfect canvas for that yearning. The true treasures of the Vatican do not reside in utopian sci-fi sections, but along the 85 kilometers of real shelves. They are the original documents that shaped the history of civilization, the transcripts of the heresy trial against Giordano Bruno, the papal bull excommunicating Martin Luther, or the desperate diplomatic dispatches sent during the darkest hours of the Second World War. These documents contain no extraterrestrials, but they tell the true, often harrowing, and profoundly fascinating story of humanity. For those wishing to delve deeper into the visual and historical reality of the Vatican archives, a well-researched overview can be found in this resource, What's Inside the Vatican Archive? This video provides an inside look at the actual layout of the underground bunker and showcases original documents like the famous Chinon parchment of the Knights Templar, effectively bridging the gap between historical reality and the myths analyzed here.